Have you ever felt that excitement of having new tools? Thinking about the number of things you can do and how it's gonna unlock your creativity? Well, that's how I felt in December when I received this set of artist decor markers as a pack of 60 colors. They looked at me challengingly to see what I would do with them. Hello, I'm Karina, and today I'm going to tell you how I transformed my initial frustrations of not knowing how to use these markers into a true passion for wanting to color with them. So get ready because I'm going to teach you 5 little tricks I learned by experimenting with these markers. Magical gradients? The secret is in the water, but not too much. Don't overdo it. Just a little bit, like so that the ink activates and you can mix them a bit. Remember that the paper is very important for the use of these markers. You don't know which paper to choose. I have a short on the channel that you can go watch where I talk about the type of paper and the results you can have depending on the paper you choose. A piece of advice I give you, which I learned from bad experience, is to test on another paper first. Always do tests first before coloring the main drawing. Each type of paper is unique, so you have to experiment. Shadows and volume. Here I'm going to give you a master trick. Work with these markers as if they were watercolors. First, you always paint the light, that is, start with the light colors to be able to paint. And then we increase the saturation or darkness of the colors. Complementary colors are always allies, so if you want to create shadow, use complementary colors. This helps you create depth and volume in the objects you are coloring, whatever they may be. Whether you are doing lettering and want to make them pop off the page, or you are coloring any illustration. The brush tip. These markers have a flexible brush tip which gives you the feeling of working with a brush. Don't worry about making perfect strokes. This is about practice. Every line, every stroke will be different and unique, just like when you work with a brush. Modern watercolor. For this tip, I was inspired by Fusilatics account. I'll leave it below, linked. In case you don't know her, you need to get to know that girl. And I love this technique. Rubbing any plastic in on the salima is in it doesn't matter what it is. It could be the wrapping of something, like a little cap or whatever plastic you can think of. We are going to turn the marker into a watercolor. So we are going to rub against the plastic. And then what we are going to do is add a little bit of water and start picking up the pigment directly from the plastic. This can help us make the colors less saturated and also to create gradients. It's ideal for making backgrounds. Moreover, with the wide range of colors these markers have, they are great for complementing the watercolor set. As a final tip, remember that these markers shine on light papers. So I recommend using them on white or light paper, not on dark or black cardstocks. Be patient when painting with them to create different layers. Remember that the colors do not cover the color underneath, but rather overlap. So they allow the color below to show through. The shadow trick. Let each layer dry before working on the next one. Because if not, the colors will start to smudge. And we don't want that to happen. If you want to go faster, you can use a heat gun to dry it a bit quicker. And for adding little details, in the case of these markers, they have a 0.4 tip. So you can use them there to add little details. Is the investment in these markers worth it? On Instagram, I had asked you to tell me any questions you had about these markers. And most people asked me if it was worth buying this type of markers. Honestly, if you're starting with lettering, they are your best option. Because it's a material that is more accessible than some brush tip markers from other brands. And they come with a lot of colors. So if you're into lettering, yes, it's worth buying them. Now, if you like coloring and painting with watercolors, I also recommend buying them because they are a good complement, as I mentioned throughout the video. Tonight, the watercolor set you have. Although we can mix watercolors and create other colors, having the fine tip can help us make small details that give another touch to the watercolors. Additionally, we have a ton of colors to outline drawings, which is a big plus. And the investment is relatively small. This brand I'm using, which is Artist Decor, they are around 20-something euros. I'll leave below some stores that I know have them in case you're interested in seeing them and checking out the different sets available. So I'll leave the links in the description. These markers behave very differently if you've painted with alcohol markers. I don't know if you'd like a comparison between how to paint with one and the other. Let me know in the comments. I read them. And before I go, I'll tell you that we have a creative challenge on my Instagram account. You have all the information on my Instagram, which you also have below in the description. Thank you very much for making it this far in the video. I send you a big hug. See you in the next video. And remember to subscribe. And I didn't forget, here I come to tell you the little trick I hinted at, which I promised to show you at the end of the video. To explain this trick, we'll start by showing that, depending on the amount of pressure we apply to the brush, it leaves more or less ink. The more pressure, the more saturation. And based on this is what we are going to work with. First, we are going to do a test. I am going to make a gradient between two colors that are quite similar, which are blue and purple. If you try to make gradients between colors that are very distant on the color wheel, you won't be able to achieve a good gradient. But if they are colors that are close, yes, you achieve a good gradient. The trick is not to let the previous color dry, so you have to work very quickly to achieve this gradient. And that effect of mixing colors. I can't quite focus well on what I'm doing with the tips of the two markers, but I'm putting blue marker ink on the purple marker. We will always unload the ink from a darker marker to a lighter one, and then I paint. By supporting the brush both in front and behind, it will create that gradient on the same brush. In this test, I show you that the blue is not staining because we are unloading the blue ink onto the purple, which is lighter. This is ideal for doing lettering. We can also do it directly on the bristles of the brush. I have a brush with a water reservoir and I paint the bristles of the brush, both with a purple marker and a blue marker. The effect is not exactly the same because it looks more watercolor-like, but it gives a cool effect if you want to paint flowers. Thank you very much for making it to the very end of the video. I hope you will learn something new throughout this video. And as I told you before, remember to subscribe and I'll read your comments.